Hi, I'm Tayo from VoiceMag, and would you like to introduce yourself for the people watching?
Hi, I'm Andra and I'm a content producer at Tideway.
So, first off, would you like to explain what the Thames Tideway Tunnel is?
So the Thames Tideway Tunnel is a tunnel, obviously, and it's going to be built underneath the Thames. And the purpose of this tunnel
Yeah.
is to redirect sewage to go into that tunnel from the river. So currently there is loads and loads and loads of sewage overflows in the river, and we
Yeah.
are gonna reduce the number of sewage that goes into the river by the end of the project.
So, why is it important to kind of redirect all the sewage?
Because currently it's being flushed into the river, and of course we don't want that to be into the river anymore, and then we want to create a cleaner river, and we want to leave this at the end of the project for the future generations. So apart from cleaning the river, we are of course building public realm and spaces for people and for Londoners to enjoy across and along the river.
So, how dirty is the Thames right now, and compared to how you want it to be in the future?
It is dirtier than people thought. We recently have done a survey and we asked people if they would swim in the river and if they think it's clean. And we were very surprised to find out that many people would swim, especially now, given this unprecedented circumstances in which you can't really travel that much. But it is very clean. So one apprentice at Tideway has said this. Her name was Kyla Brown. She said, if you ever think about swimming in the River Thames, you should think about what you put into your toilet. So when you flush the toilet and where that water goes, that is what you're swimming in when you're swimming in the Thames.
Yeah. So the Tideway Tunnel is kind of to almost fix that issue then, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because the Thames has a lot of potential and it's wonderful and it's brilliant. But we have to take care of it, especially for the next years. Now it might be still not so concerning. So the issue maybe is not that obvious. But if we leave things like this in 10 years' time, things might be concerning.
Yeah. So this is a project where you're focusing on the future and you're thinking about where you want things to go, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Awesome. Has the pandemic affected the project much?
Well, it has a little bit in terms of delivery and in terms of the pace and in terms of how much we were able to ensure that our staff and our personnel could go on site. Of course, we have many sites across London, so traveling to central London has been problematic, but we accommodated and we've learned to adapt, and we've changed our sites and we've changed the security, and we did all we could to ensure that we respect all the rules and the regulations in line with the government recommendations. So it's been a bit difficult in the beginning, but we've learned to adapt and we innovated so quickly and we had to respond. So I would say in the bigger picture, if we will look at this period in 5 years' time, it did affect us a little bit, but we're good. We're still going strong.
Nice. So you've still kind of managed to cope with all the massive difficulties. I know you've got a lot of people working there, so that must be really hard.
Yeah. Because people wanted to do this, and we all believe in this. And when we come together and we have a common scope and purpose, good ideas come and we solve problems.
So is there a big, as you talk about that purpose, so is there a big kind of almost communal feeling on the project that everyone wants to get this done to make this Thames better for future generations then?
Well, exactly. This is why we are all here. It's not like we're working for someone or that we have we're working for Tideway. We are working for ourselves. We are all Londoners and we want to live here. We want our kids, not mine, but the kids of other people, to live in London in a good city, and we want to be synchronized with the future where we might have to say a bit more local. We don't know how the future is going to look like, so we do what we can. And of course, yes, we are motivated by this purpose of cleaning the river, cleaning London.
So you were talking about things you're creating for people to interact with the Thames. What sort of things would those be?
So we are creating a public realm, a number of public spaces along the river. So where we are cleaning the space, we are going to create parks, and there's going to be areas for recreation and sports and just traveling and looking at the river and sightseeing. And then we are working with communities and local communities and artists, residents as well. And we're trying to emphasize the beauty of the River Thames, and we're trying to enable artists and local residents to see how they can get inspired by the river.
Yeah. Do you think people value the river enough?
Some people do, yes. I would say people who can see its beauty do value it a lot. For example, our artists, most of them living in Fulham, living in everywhere around London, are all inspired by the river. So one very interesting point that we observed when we talked to the artists involved in our projects and in our art projects, where it was that they all come from very different backgrounds. They all have very different stories. They all have different styles. They all work differently. They all work for different purposes and reasons, but they all have one common denominator. So one inspiration that is common for all, and that is exactly the River Thames. So that was quite interesting.
Nice. So do you find that the Thames inspires you as well?
In a certain way, it does. It's the colors of it and the feeling that it kind of transmits to me is very unique. It's calming. It's different from what you would expect from a river. London itself is a very different city, and yes, I would say it inspires me. I walk past the River Thames almost every day. Now, not that much anymore, but I used to. And I do a lot of activities around the river. So I run, and I want to run next to the river. I don't know, I just meditate, I think about stuff, and I want to be next to the river. So it does inspire me.
So has this project kind of changed your relationship with the Thames?
It has almost kind of created my relationship with the Thames, because before I was next to it, but I didn't realize how much it can actually offer. And I didn't see it in that way. And then now that we talk about it, and we're trying to make it, to repaint it and to, emphasize its colors, I would say, yeah, it has. And I see Tideway sites, and it's every time I walk past the Thames, and I recognize them. So I have this feeling of coherence, of recognition with the Thames, with Tideway. So yeah.
So it's kind of like almost you've got this new bond that you didn't realize was there.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm actually transmitting the same to my friends and family. They sent me pictures of Tideway sites and of the Thames, and they say, oh, I haven't seen that spot. I didn't think about that spot when I was in Battersea Park, for example. But when they spot the Tideway colors and the Tideway sides, they're like, oh, that's where you were. That's Tideway. That's so cool. So yeah.
So do you think people should try and connect with the Thames more then?
Of course, definitely. I would say, especially in this period, and not only in this period, I would say in the future, and especially in what the future will look like, it seems like travel will change, the world will change, and we might have to focus on local. So we might want to keep it, close to ourselves. So we will have to try to see what's next to us, and the River Thames is what we have in London. So instead of traveling to all parts of Europe, perhaps to see different areas and different rivers, we can see all the areas that the River Thames has to offer. So if you go just a little bit outside London, outside central London, you see so many different perspectives and views, and everything is around the river.
So what are some ways you think people could or should start to forge that sort of new connection?
Can you just say that again, the connection?
Sorry. What are some ways that you think people could or should start to connect to this river?
There are loads of activities that you can do. You can swim, not as a person, but there's swimming activities safely without touching the water. That is not clean. I just wanted to emphasize. There is loads of activities like painting and drawing alongside the river. There is organized walks. There is biking, just taking a bike and finding paths in West London and East London, especially. I'd say around, for example, Battersea Park is really nice to run along the river. And for example, next to Tate Britain, I think you can listen to music and musicians and artists. You can watch artists painting. And if you stop and push the pause button and look at what you have, then I would say people will find out there's lots of things that can be done around the Thames.
Awesome. This is great. One last thing. Where can people find Tideway and kind of the work you do if they wanted to look up the sort of stuff you do?
In terms of the art or in terms of the sewer, the super sewer?
Both actually.
So if you want to find out more about Tideway, of course, the online and the websites are there for you to see. If you want to get in touch and visit one of our sites, not sure you can do it right now, but I'm sure you can get in touch and see what options we have available. Everywhere around London, we have loads of sites. So if you walk, for example, next to Battersea Park or next to Fulham, Putney Bridge, you will see the Tideway color and you can see it. And in terms of our art and in terms of our commissions and our highlights of the paintings and art, we have hoardings and all the art is exposed on Carnot Road, for example. And that's where we had very, very interesting pieces of art from our residents.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much. This has been really interesting for me.